listening to
A to the K.
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 A to the K. WrestleTalk podcast.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.
And we're back with another week of A to the K's WrestleTalk podcast. I am the above average Anthony. And to my left is the king of chaos himself. It's Carl.
It is. That is me. And Anthony, finally, A to the K have come back. I mean, well, like we do every week, really. It's not really that impressive. But, we are the podcast blazing, blood pressure raising, baloney eating, meme eating. No, meme eating. Shit, meme tweeting. You get it. We eat memes.
We tweet memes.
Meme tweeting, flip-flopping, news dropping, podcast champs, A to the K. That is us.
And, credit to Dwayne Johnson. He made that look easy.
He did.
It ain't easy.
It ain't easy. Especially where you just have to have a little bit of a seizure.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's good.
So, another fun-filled week, guys. Who are we interviewing this week, Carl? Which major celebrity are we interviewing this week?
I mean, there's just so many. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
To choose.
It's a bit of a come down after Jordan Smith last week, but still going to be a fun-filled show, guys. We don't need guests.
Not every week. It would be less special if we did it every week.
All you need.
Well, we're going to give you this week. We're going to give you the pay-per-view, not a proper pay-per-view, like a baby pay-per-view, like a little one.
Baby view sounds really bad. Yes.
But joking aside, we have for you this week, as always, the Ringside Report. We're going to talk about all the latest news and rumours in the world of wrestling, any that we've spotted anyway. We're going to talk about this week in wrestling. We'll talk about the big four shows being Raw, NXT, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Now, Carl, that will be a talking point because it was a hell of a Dynamite this week and may have some implications on our show. Are we going to have to introduce number 5?
Please no.
I fucking hope not.
Yeah.
And lastly, this week's segment 3 will be another pay-per-view, another NXT takeover. We have War Games, which will be probably a little less exciting than I made it sound, in all fairness. So, tune in and making it sound proper good. So, Carl, who's doing the headlines this week? Was it me or you?
I mean, I did it last week, to be fair. Same. But you do it most weeks, so I don't mind. Your call, man. Your call.
We'll try and do 10 about. 10 about is fair play. So, coming up tonight on the Ringside Report, Pat Patterson sadly passes away at the age of 79. CM Punk has mentioned wrestling again. CM Punk criticizes WWE for their handling of Selena Vega and taking opportunities away from certain stars. WWE wrestlers are to appear on a reboot of Punky Brewster. It's probably the most random one of the week.
That is 2020 news for you right there.
Jackson Riker has returned to WWE main event. Undertaker could be moving into a new role in the Performance Center. We have news on Eva Marie potentially returning to WWE. We have an update on Tessa Blanchard's wrestling future. And we have the wonderful news of Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch introducing their baby girl into the world. That is the Ringside Report for this week. So, Carl, who had the first headline? Was it you? It was you. Hit him with the first headline.
It was me.
Sadly,
yeah.
not the best news this week.
No.
But we have to mention it. We have to honour the man. So.
Well, that's it. A bit of a somber note to kick the news off with this week. But unfortunately, the legend that is Pat Patterson has unfortunately passed away this week. Passed away at age 79. Obviously, absolute legend in the business. He was the guy. He was the first Intercontinental Champion. If you listen to the show, you know how much I love that Intercontinental Championship. So that in itself is massive. And obviously, he came up with the concept of the Royal Rumble. So if you watch the show or you listen to the show, you know how much we both love the Royal Rumble. So
God damn right.
Just a massive part of our wrestling journey, really, in terms of what we love and enjoy about the business. But yeah, unfortunately, passed away last week, or in the last kind of few days or so, really, age 79. And I think it's been now announced it was due to liver failure or like liver complications. So, just terrible news, really. I think when the WWE Network first came about, one of the kind of marquee shows on there was Legends House. It was something that I proper binge watched because I'm a massive fan of the Legends. I've been watching this thing for years, and the cast was amazing. We had Piper, we had Pat Patterson, Gene Okerlund, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, like so many guys on there. And yeah, it was actually on that show where Pat Patterson, actually came out to the world as well. He was probably the first openly gay wrestler.
Yeah, I read that myself. That's because I knew he was gay, but I didn't realize he was apparently the first openly gay wrestler in the biz.
Yeah, so I think it was one of them. It was a really big moment on the show. I think it'd been alluded to for a while that he was gay and stuff like that. I don't think he really hid it, but he just didn't really talk about it and stuff like that. But for him to finally have that acceptance and say it on a public platform, was a groundbreaking moment, I think. So yeah, just a massive loss as well. We talk about all these accomplishments and these achievements, that Pat has done over the years. But the thing to think about as well is, regardless of how he entertained us, whether as a wrestler, whether it was one of Vince's stooges or, the god-awful match he had with Gerald Briscoe, the evening gown match, which we've spoken about, was a terrible, terrible match. It's entertainment and, all that kind of stuff is incredible. But it's the stuff he's done behind the scenes as well. He works as a producer. He's so heavily involved in how matches are structured and like the finish and how
it's funny you say that, because like a lot of what we'll mention in This Week in Wrestling refers to, like, they want to pay homage to Pat, and a lot of them have, like, how do I explain it? Like particular matches, whilst it's not totally on the nose, they're like, they were done for Pat. Do you know what I mean? They didn't have. They knew exactly what type of finish to do. They knew what to avoid, to pay homage to the way that he would structure a match and how he would do it, which is it's a lovely thing to do. But just shows you the respect that everyone had for him.
Well, that's it, and I think as well, like Vince was particularly close with him. We had the whole Vince's Stooges angle with him and Patterson and Briscoe and that kind of thing. But Vince and Pat go way back, and they've been pretty much inseparable for years. So someone like Vince must be really feeling this loss as well. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's such a shame. It's a horrible industry, wrestling, because you follow it for so many years, and you just see like the greats just like disappearing like one by one. And Pat, while he's not necessarily from my era in terms of his wrestling skills, the contribution he left to the business in terms of the Rumble, like the matches he's been in, whether it's been a referee, whether it's been stuff in like the later years and stuff like that. Like, he's been massively entertaining, and he's like produced so many fantastic matches, and just a massive loss. And
I think it's the thing, like for pretty much a large part of our generation, it was a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So even if you don't know the name, you sort of know the impact in some senses. Do you know what I mean? Which is crazy to think. Like, most people know what a Royal Rumble is, but they wouldn't know that Pat was like the creator of, like, which is insane, isn't it? But that's a legacy thing, isn't it? Like, that'll always be against his name, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And, obviously the first Intercontinental Champion as well. So, and I think that speaks volumes as well, because they like introducing the secondary title needed to be someone who was big enough to hold the title, but not big enough to take away the spotlight from the main event guy. And Pat Patterson just like was the best kind of choice for that as well. So yeah, it was amazing, really. And I don't want, in case anybody comments on this, like, oh, this is stupid or whatever like that, like, it's customary for us on this show, whenever someone kind of passes away, or we want to honor somebody, to raise a glass. And I know he's obviously passed away because of liver failure and stuff like that, but regardless, it's our tradition, and
well, it's a sign of respect more than anything else.
So it's not, but I think massive glass raised to Pat and the contributions on the business, and you will be missed, mate, honestly.
Sincerely.
Yeah, bit of a somber one to start off with, Anthony, but we have to cover all the things.
No, this thing, and it wouldn't be right to do the show this week and not mention him or pay our own tribute or talk about our own respect we have for the man. So there's we couldn't not. But yeah, I mean, I think, should we do like a moment's silence for Pat? Yeah,
definitely.
So segueing on as best as we can, Carl. The next bit of news we have for the week is CM Punk. Now, this one surprised me in a lot of senses. Now, I don't know if you've either heard or read this one, Carl, but essentially he was a guest on Renee. I don't know. Is it Paquette? No, because she's going by her actual surname now.
Packets of crisps. Packets of crisps.
That's how we. Yeah. We've got a lot of a large American audience, Carl. You might want to say chips.
Packet of chips. Packet of chips.
Did he say packet? Bag of chips. No, this
Bag
is
baguette. Yeah, baguette. Let's go with baguette.
So she's obviously started her own podcast, which is it the Oral Sessions?
I mean, it could be.
It's something like that, isn't it?
I mean, I think it definitely is, but I just want to make it sound dirtier than it is. But yeah.
No, so she had CM Punk. She invited CM Punk around for her Oral Sessions. So you can't look like everyone would be like, "Oh, it's such an obvious joke." It's like, yeah, but I'm almost sure she's trolling with that title. To be honest with you,
oh yeah,
like one of her first guests was John himself.
Oh.
But yeah, so what we've had is Punk on as a guest, and normally over the years, Punk has been very outspoken and, let's say, bitter about WWE. So what surprised me with this one is the fact that he was playing this very careful, and this is the closest I've ever come to going, we might see CM Punk back, because he wasn't as cutting as he has been, which the next article might change that a little bit, the one you cover, Carl. But he was talking about his interest in returning, as he likes to do every once in a while. I think you know what time of year it is from when CM Punk comments this. But he essentially, and I'll paraphrase, I won't sort of go into specifics, but he was essentially saying that with the greatest respect to WWE, as it stands right now, what would interest him would be something new, someone who's not wrestled before. So he mentioned previously, not in this podcast, but he's mentioned previously a couple of names like Daniel Bryan and that he might consider returning for a match for, but essentially there's on the current roster in WWE, nothing excites him enough to want to return. But he did also say that he'd be more intrigued by AEW, and again was not sort of dogging WWE for that, and he was not sort of bitching or anything about them, surprisingly. But he was saying like if he was looking at AEW, then he could have the opportunity of going up against like the likes of the Young Bucks or Kenny Omega, people he's not wrestled before who are amazing wrestlers. They're well known in the business. He's just never had the opportunity. Similarly, he mentioned New Japan. I think Okada was one of the ones he said like he's not seen a lot of his matches, but again he'd be really intrigued. Even went as far as to say like with the utmost respect, like even John Moxley, he's wrestled John Moxley before, so even like both professionals, a lot of respect for him, but he wouldn't really be that entertained by that concept either. It's there's something new. It's probably what drew him back in. And then he did also say, or a big wheelbarrow of cash. Might not have said wheelbarrow, but essentially a big ton of cash. And even when it got to the point about WWE, and he was basically sort of almost quite careful on that as well, saying that there is baggage there, and they'd have to sort a lot out before he would consider going back to WWE. And I don't know. I think the thing that surprises me is not the fact that he's talking about the potential return to wrestling again. It's the fact that this is the most respectful I've seen him of WWE in a while. I don't know if you agree with that, Carl. But
I mean, yeah, definitely. It's a weird one because he spoke favourably about AEW in the sense of him saying, "Do you know what? There's a lot of guys there I'd love to work with." I think he even threw New Japan in there as well, saying I'd love to work with Okada, but I never really seen any of his stuff. I was like, okay, so you just want to work with him for the name then and for the payday.
Well, that was the probably the loosest one, because he's like, I've not seen a lot of his matches.
Well, yeah, but
okay.
the thing that jumps out to me is that AEW might seem like a better place for him based on, obviously the baggage he's got with the WWE, but let's not forget, him and Colt Cabana fucking hate each other now. And
there is that.
He's very much, prevalent in AEW as well. So, I don't know, it's weird. I feel like he's alienated himself from everybody.
You know what, though? And I could be wrong on this, because I don't know what Tony Khan's like, but I think for the gambit of getting Punk on board and knowing what that would do for their company, because it still would draw more so than Colt Cabana, I think he'd do it and just tell Colt to sort of man up, as it were, and put up with it.
Colt. Yeah, I mean, defo, but it's more like Punk. He's a by all accounts, he's a very bitter guy. So it's whether or not he would even, entertain being in the same room or the same arena as Colt.
Mm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's Punk returning season. Like he, it goes quiet for a while.
It's Christmas again.
That's it. And then he's like, well, maybe I could come back. I don't know. I feel like we've been hearing it for ages now. So I think we've discussed at length on this podcast of, he had his time to come back when it would have been red hot, and now, he's been battered twice in UFC. He made a return to a shit talk show, and it's like,
I actually think that was probably the most damaging to a WWE return, is that he kind of returned to a backstage show where they interview people, so it kind of took the I don't know, the luster off it in some senses.
Yeah.
There's always going to be Punk fans, and there's always going to be fans who will lose their shit when he returns. But I think the larger part of the audience now will probably be like, no, it's just not the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all due respect to Punk, it wouldn't be like Edge returning. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly.
Wouldn't have that same atmosphere as when Edge came back at the Rumble. It's not going to be that kind of thing.
No. I mean, it's one of them. It'll definitely get a pop, assuming no fans, allowed in arenas. But yeah, I don't know. It won't be like Edge level. It'll be more like oh, wow, Punk. Okay, I wonder what this is going to mean.
Exactly. It's like
intrigue, not like
a lot of water under the bridge, apparently.
Shit. Yeah. So.
But that's the thing, because I'll be honest, like, I was like, I got into the Summer of Punk. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The pipe bomb was amazing. It was some of the best work in WWE at that time. Understandably, that's what propelled him to the top of the biz. But am I particularly bothered if he comes back and wrestles? I mean, hopefully they could build a good story and it'd be something entertaining. But just the mere fact that he's back wouldn't draw it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? A fun fact, Anthony. A fun fact for you and for all the listeners. CM Punk is the only person who I've bought 2 T-shirts of during their active reign.
Wow.
So I obviously got his Best in the World T-shirt, and then I got his the weird one with the badge. So I was definitely in for the Summer of Punk. It was a shit show, definitely, but the build-up was fantastic. But yeah, obviously I've had many T-shirts in my time, Triple H ones in the past, and Cena ones. To be honest, I might have had 2 Triple H ones if I didn't end up getting a fucking Chain Gang one from John Cena at that show.
What a wise choice that was.
That was silly on respect on reflection. You told me at the time as well. Like, no, I'm part of the Chain Gang. Yeah, what a dick. But yeah. So there you go. I definitely was a CM Punk fanboy at one point. But yeah.
I think it was hard not to be. Like, you can watch the initial pipe bomb back now, and people still heavily debate whether it was more shoot than work, but you can't deny that was captivating. And at a time when WWE didn't really have a lot going on, he was the best thing there, and it's hard not to get behind that when you're watching the product at the time. But I don't know, like you say, I think it's been a bit too long, sadly.
Yeah.
And we'd still enjoy it. Come back, Punk, that's fine. Do it. We'd still enjoy it. It's just maybe you should have done it a couple of years ago. Yeah.
But Anthony, speaking of CM Punk, this one's quite an easy segue, to be fair. But again, he's been in the news this week. I think it might have again come from the same interview that he did with Renee Baguette. The oral session that he had with Renee. But yeah, so obviously they were speaking about everything wrestling, but it came onto the topic around how WWE handled, Zelina Vega, her Twitch and stuff like that, and ultimately her release, which again we've spoken to at length on this show. But yeah, Punk was basically quoted as saying, well, you know what, I don't get why it's okay for people like Xavier Woods to go ahead and have his own show and go and petition almost to be the host of G4, which he's ended up getting. So it's like, well, at what point, and we spoke about this as well with Pritchard, didn't we? Was it last week or the week before, where he's obviously got his own podcast. So basically, Punk is just of the opinion that, well, do you know what? They just have different rules for different people depending on.
They clearly do. I think Pritchard's probably the main example of that, because I understand where he gets to with Xavier, because I think he'll go, if that can make me money, right? And I can't have no categoric proof, but I reckon WWE have made an absolute mint out of them being featured in Gears of War, right? And that's because Xavier is well into his games and sets up that YouTube channel. So if WWE can make a bit of money off the back of him, then they're happy. They weren't making money out of Selena's Twitch, right?
Yeah.
And this is the thing. Pritchard, I think, is the example that it's just, one rule for 1 month with the other, because he's basically mates with Vince. So Vince is going, yeah, it's fine. Crack on.
Yeah.
Or he knows it's just not that good. I don't know.
But yeah, no, I mean, it definitely seems like, there's certain favoritism, or there's certain, like, well, if it, is important to our business interests, we will support it. But if it's not, then we're going to, clamp down on it and stuff. So I think, in fairness to Punk, he's, he is speaking quite right there, I would say. There's no real kind of rules or regulations on it. They've done this company-wide thing, but there's other people who are falling through the cracks and not getting punished for it. So, yeah, I don't really know. But he also basically kind of used his own experience in WWE to kind of, bounce off almost, by saying, well, there was times that he was at WWE and he found out through other people that they wanted him to do various things, and he had no recollection of this because WWE just vetoed it. And he gave the example of like a pinball kind of arcade machine that apparently they wanted to have Punk's face on, and they reached out to WWE and they were like, no. And Punk had no idea of this, and they were like,
you see, that's baffling, isn't it? Because why wouldn't they want his face on it? That's just marketing, isn't it?
Exactly.
I don't even get why they'd say no.
Exactly. But also apparently the same with THQ in the WWE video games. I think it was WWE 13. It was quite iconic, the kind of Punk front cover that they had. And I believe, they weren't originally going to put him on it because they reached out to WWE and they were like, no, we don't want Punk. We want someone like Sheamus or John Cena or The Miz, believe it or not. And Punk was like, didn't know anything about this. And then...
Is this where the storyline span from? Because didn't he do a big storyline where John Laurinaitis was going to put himself on the cover?
Well, do you know what? Probably.
I recall there's a thing where like Punk unveiled the cover of himself that was like significantly bigger than John Laurinaitis's.
Yeah.
And then they went for that crude dick joke that they normally do. But my point, I could swear they spun that into a storyline as well. I didn't realise there was an echo of truth to that.
Well, yeah, apparently there was. And they kind of like went around the houses and said, no, he's not the guy we want on this. It has to be one of these guys.
I distinctly remember when he was on Colt Cabana's podcast before they fell out with each other, and he referred to like a gig he got himself doing like a Comic-Con or something along that line. WWE took him off it and put other wrestlers on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, what a cunt move.
Yeah.
So, he's got plenty of stories in that sense where it's like, what the fuck is this?
No, definitely. I think, we've been speaking, especially of late as well, around the craziness of their decision-making, their thinking and stuff like that. And it just, they've got some serious issues, haven't they, as a company? Just, people are going out there, making their own stardom, making their own, which can only benefit the company at large. And they're just like, no, thanks for that. We're going to tell you to fuck off and we're going to give it to this guy. And it's like, hang on, you wouldn't have had this opportunity. It wasn't for me. So...
It's funny because I read it a lot now where people say there's never going to be another Rock or another Cena as far as WWE goes. And I was a bit like, I don't know, because they were enigmas, but I don't necessarily, that's not necessarily WWE's fault. But, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, yeah, it seems almost like they do actively stifle anyone getting like famous. You know what I mean? Like, are they sick of them leaving or something? Do they feel betrayed by Cena and The Rock? So they're like, no, never going to happen again.
No idea.
Crazy.
But, yeah.
Speaking of crazy, Cal. This one is like, it's kind of off the wall. So do you ever remember a show many moons ago called Punky Brewster?
Oh yeah.
So not related at all. It was about a girl who such a fucked up storyline actually for way back when. No worse than Different Strokes, I suppose. But she was abandoned by her mum at the shops and ended up sneaking and living into an apartment or something and ends up getting adopted. Anyway, long story short, it was about an orphan girl. And it was popular. Now, they have recently decided to do a reboot of Punky Brewster. And then you've got these crazy things that are connected to WWE. So Freddie Prinze Jr. is one of the casting characters in Punky Brewster. Freddie Prinze Jr. is involved with WWE or has been in the past. I don't know if he still is.
No, I wasn't the past.
So Freddie Prinze Jr. has involved Devon Dudley, of all people, who is producing some parts of the show. And furthermore, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss are both going to make some form of cameo appearance in Punky Brewster, the reboot.
That's mental.
I never thought I'd be talking about Punky Brewster on this podcast, but here we are.
That is mental. Like, obviously Freddie was a writer for SmackDown, I think he was, many moons ago. I think it was around about, I don't know, at least 5 years ago or something now, but he ended up leaving. But yeah, he's a massive wrestling fan. I don't know whether he is instrumental of getting, obviously he says he brought Devon Dudley on board to produce, which is insane. But yeah, like getting Alexa and Charlotte on, mad. Like, that is fucking crazy.
It's like, what? Well, I mean, I probably never watched the show, but we're going to have to watch those cameos.
Oh, God, yeah.
Crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll reach out to Freddie, see if he'll come on the show. I'm sure he will. He's good friends. So
that's it,
have a chat to him about it, about how that came about,
Do you know what? Reach out to him. I bet he would, He seems like a stand-up guy.
He does.
But yeah.
But
I think
that would not end up being a wrestling show, though.
No.
Like, so you're married to Buffy? Let's talk about that.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. But no, I think if WWE superstars do make their way into the Punky Brewster remake, it'll definitely be the main event of my viewing, shall we say?
Yeah, that's the thing.
100%.
We'll tune in for them. But yeah, so crazy times. There's WWE all over that Punky Brewster stuff, and I'm sure that whoever plays Punky Brewster in the reboots is going to appear in WWE at some point for a women's match, probably. I don't know. But, and do you remember that, like the girl who played Punky Brewster? Do you know that she was the girl who hits Joey in Friends? Yes, sorry guys, we're showing sign of our age because Friends is well old as well.
No,
you know the one who keeps punching Joey and he wears like a ton of layers to avoid it.
Oh shit! Of course it is.
That was Punky Brewster.
You're just so funny or whatever. He's like, it hurts. Yeah, of course.
So fun fact for you there, Carl.
Madness. And I'll pretend like you didn't ruin my segue earlier and be like, speaking of main events, Anthony.
I'm sorry.
It's all good.
You deliberately put that segue in there.
It still flows. And that's what matters.
Speaking of feeling bad.
Speaking of feeling bad. Oh, I bet a lot of people feel bad about this recent return on
I was
WWE's
very
main
surprised
event.
by this, to be honest. Not for the way he's come. Well, sort of for the way he's come back. Not for where he's come back to. That kind of makes sense to me. But for what they appear to be doing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you talk about it, Carl. This is your article.
It is. Shut up, Anthony. It's my article. But no, so weirdly, as you just said, we'd spoken around what were they called? What was that little trio called?
The Forgotten Sons.
The Forgotten Sons.
I love how you forgot that.
Classic. But yeah, so obviously they had the Forgotten Sons debut on SmackDown a while ago, and then obviously a certain Jackson Riker had made some comments on his social channels that were a bit taboo, shall we say, or very...
To be honest, everyone's entitled to their opinions. Ill-timed, definitely.
Yeah. Obviously stuff around Black Lives Matter, stuff around Donald Trump, a lot of things came out, and maybe it wasn't the best time to do that. So by all accounts, he'd been pretty much blackballed by WWE,
taking a ton of heat.
Yeah, a lot of guys just hated him by all accounts, and it went so far to the point where he was actually removed from the call sheet as though he wasn't an actual superstar anymore. Like they just like
just to like avoid it.
So he was gone. So everyone kind of thought, especially after the spoilers on SmackDown.
I mean, we will talk about that. You can spoil it now anyway.
Well, yeah. Two of the Forgotten Sons that weren't Jackson Riker reappeared as a big shock on
Blake
SmackDown.
and Cutler are back. And I'm glad they are, because they must have been, at the time when Riker's just saying loads of stuff, they must have been like, dude, shut up.
Shut up, guys, shut up. We're going to win the tag team belts, man, shut up.
No, that's the thing, they were on for winning the tag champs. That could have done a lot of wonders for them, but anyway.
But yeah, so they were back without Riker, so everyone was kind of like, oh shit, this guy's getting future endeavored 100%.
I think I even messaged you that the night. I was like, yeah, he's getting future endeavored
100%. And then like shock horror, he turns up on main event. So obviously it's taped just prior to Raw, and nobody really watches it, let's be honest. But I think we tweeted or we put on Instagram or both. I can't remember. Socialed this
Definitely
week.
instant.
That obviously off the back of Elias's electrocution in the Symphony of Destruction match, which we'll get onto on the Raw review shortly.
Yeah.
It was believed he would take on a new gimmick potentially because the doctors were like, well, after that, you can't play guitar anymore. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And it turns out on main event that he's just gone into a tag team with Jackson Riker. That is his new gimmick. So not really sure what it all means. Apparently it's happened because they're trying to just test it out and see what the reaction is to them as a tag team.
Both have beards.
Well, exactly. They both have beards. They're both brunette guys. Look vaguely similar. You know, Vince is probably like, what's Luke Harper doing here? Because that's what he's like. I'll never forget that time.
Calls them all Luke.
I'll never forget that time where he basically confused some member of the roster, and he thought it was Shelton Benjamin. And Shelton hadn't worked with him for years. And he's like, "Oh, good one, Shelton." And it was just like, "What?" But anyway.
I feel like that must happen all the time, and they're just like, "Go with it."
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so wildly, Jackson Riker is back on WWE TV after all the controversy, and apparently is forming a tag team with Elias. Poor Elias.
Yeah, like, no offense to Jackson Riker. You know, I don't want to see anyone lose the job. So come back to main events, build yourself back up. Maybe, you know, stay off social media for a bit. You know, the Lars effect. But I was really rooting for Elias to go on to a decent solo run. And like, Jeff beat him so bad, he's on main event now with Jackson Riker. That's just not great.
No.
Yeah, it's so disappointing for the man. Like, he was doing so well as well. He had an album out. You know, I maybe he got injured too many times. So Vince is like, no, that's it. I don't know, but not good stuff, man.
No, I guess we can just hope that they have a really good performance.
Maybe. Speaking of performance, Cal, as they picked up on it. Anyway, so Triple H has very recently been asked about The Undertaker. Given obviously The Undertaker has made some sporadic appearances to Performance Center, done some, I don't know if this is the right term, but he's done some guest training, you know, to motivate the talent. And, you know, he's been doing bits and bobs like that. And basically the question was put to Triple H, like, is this what we're going to expect now? Undertaker's sort of officially retired. Is he going to be working as a trainer? Is he going to be working in the Performance Center, et cetera, et cetera? And Triple H basically said, like, slow down. He's earned his retirement. He's going to let him have a breath. And, you know, they're always happy to have him, you know, like, whatever he wants to do in a lot of senses. And, you know, they have been in talks and there are ideas knocking about. And like I say, he's going to make some more appearances at the Performance Center here and there. As for a regular gig, possibly not just yet. And that's just purely down to, like, let the man enjoy his retirement. He's only just retired after 30 years in the biz. Like, all right, slowed down a little bit in his later days, but still. So what do you make of the idea of Undertaker being there to help mold the new young talent?
I mean, I think that would be amazing for the young talent. I think it would be infinitely better than him sitting there doing cameos, which is what he's doing at the minute. I honestly can't wrap my head around how he has gone from being the Undertaker to, okay, I'm retired now, and he just goes on mad TV shows and just does mad interviews and is doing cameos, and it's like, it's the Undertaker. Like, I don't know.
Seriously, like, he's like, we saw a thing, fellow podcasters who were friends with on Instagram, like he like, I don't quite know how it worked, but he sort of randomly appeared in a video chat with one of them as well, didn't he? Like, yeah. Which is fucking awesome. But like you say, he's just literally popping up out of nowhere. It's awesome.
Exactly. Like I just did not expect that to be the retirement of the Undertaker. Like, you know, Shawn Michaels went off for ages, came back, NXT trainer, made sense. Ric Flair went off, came back, made a few on-screen appearances. Undertaker, I've retired now. Hey guys, I'm Undertaker. I'm on this show. I'm on that show. I'm on this podcast. It's like, what? Like, yeah, mad.
He's right here. But the scary thing is that, like, you for a sec, you probably believe that, Cal.
I mean, well, that's it. You know, if anything, I'm insulted why he's not right here. Like, fucking hell, Taker, you've done everything else.
I know. We love you, man.
Do it.
Get on the show.
Do it.
But
Do it.
do it.
Do it.
Sorry, guys, you will get a lot of references to random films. But yeah, like I know what you mean, but I think this is like he retired the Undertaker, and now we're getting a hell of a lot of Mark. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like this is Calloway letting loose. He's been quiet for 30 years, man. He's got a lot to fucking say.
Like that is a podcast right there. Calloway lets loose. Make it happen.
But yeah, I mean, I love the idea that he's going to be involved in molding the future of the business. A lot of those stars who grew up watching it, you know, and you could see when he retired the amount of them like that come over. Like, I found it really surreal. I can't even remember what it was. I think it might have been Sasha or someone like that. He took a picture of them seeing the Undertaker, and they were as like almost as awestruck as we would be.
Yeah,
and that baffles me. It's like you're currently a star in the product, and even they're still awestruck by the man. And it makes sense because like they grew up watching him, so that must be like a total mindfuck, really. But yeah, I think yeah, I'd love the idea. Obviously, yeah, enjoy your retirement, Mark. But you know, I'd love the idea of him working in the performance center and helping build up, you know, the future of the business, because who knows the business better, really?
True. And Anthony, speaking of people who know the business and
nice.
don't know the business, yeah.
I know. I'll be honest. I totally forgot to set you up for that one.
Go on, give it a go.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if he can return in any way, that'd be a good thing.
I mean, it would be, wouldn't we? Speaking of people who will return, that would be a good thing. No, it doesn't work because it wouldn't be.
I don't know. To be honest, I seem to have totally gapped her career. I'll be honest. I know the name, but
we kid. Obviously, Eva Marie is potentially set for a return. I think we spoke about her like a few months ago, probably as far back as September time. I'm going to sneeze.
It was a while ago.
There you go.
I'm going to leave that in, and people are going to think that you sneeze totally like silently. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's an art, shall we say?
You do that?
Speaking of people who have an art, no, Eva Marie is potentially coming back to the business. We spoke about it all the way back in September as a possibility, even as part of the draft, and we just never saw it kind of come to fruition. But I spoke before around, obviously, the likes of Jackson Riker, whose name had been left off the superstar kind of, what do they even call it? Like
roster,
yeah, whatever.
The call list. Is it the call list?
The call list.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. But surprisingly, Eva Marie's name has been on that list for a few weeks. So obviously she's been spotted a few times at the Performance Center.
They were always planning for her to be the one who come back and knock Carmella, because I still take over to the whole Carmella thing. It's like, how is this a gimmick change? You haven't changed.
Imagine.
Anyway.
But yeah, no. So she apparently is being seen at the Performance Center. She's been taking tests, which, you know, what are required to be in the Amway Center and stuff like that. So yeah, you know, by all accounts, she's going to make a return, which is interesting to say the least, because she was kind of burnt out. She took a break or left the business to go and pursue other interests, and now she may be back. You know, I think to your point, Anthony, you said you may have missed her run or whatever. I think she's not had the best run, shall we say. So she was brought in as someone who Corey Graves was just like obsessed with, like, oh, it's Eva Marie and whatever. And then she had this
now, was that a gimmick thing. Or?
Well, who knows? But she had this little weird thing where, you know, each week she was set to make a debut, and every time she was about to, some weird wardrobe malfunction happened, and then like her top fell off or her pants fell off or something. She'd have to run away. And then she did have a few matches, but then yeah, it was just, I think the fans kind of turned on her a bit. So maybe they're thinking, well, okay, we've got no fans to turn on her. Maybe
I vaguely recall that. Did she like win through like really bad shenanigans, and that's the sort of the turning point for fans, that like she barely wrestled, and then I don't know, I feel I vaguely recall something like that where like it was something that happened in the match that they were like, no, this is some bullshit now.
Well, I think, you know, her wrestling ability isn't the best, shall we say, but I think WWE were quite big on her. She was very prominently featured in the Total Divas TV show, so yeah, it was one of them, but it just didn't really work out. So yeah, I'm surprised to see that potentially she is back. it'd be interesting because I'm not really sure where she would slot in today's kind of product. So yeah, if she does come back, let's see, and hopefully she is committed this time, I guess, because last time she just kind of gave up a little bit too easy. So yeah, bit of an interesting one.
It is.
But anyway,
So,
hopefully as a woman, she has a strong wrestling future.
Indeed. But I appreciate the segue. But I have a horrible theory on this. And I say horrible because I don't want it to happen, right? No offense to Eva Marie. But, right, there was the whole Corey Graves connection, right?
Mm.
We've got Carmella going up against Sasha at TLC. I've got a horrible feeling Carmella might win the belt. I've got a horrible feeling Eva Marie might come out and attack her. I've got a horrible feeling they're going to try and build up a feud between the two of them based on the whole Corey Graves connection and try and make it somewhat personal. And the reason it's all horrible is because I want Sasha to have a run with the belt. So if what I'm theorizing is true, which it might not be, likely not be, hopefully not be, but yeah, here's hoping it doesn't.
Well, that's definitely a wildie, and if it happens, then you've called it here first, and we'll make it
right.
known.
That's fucking damn right. I called it.
That is Anthony.
Speaking of calling things, no, that don't work. Anyway, the next one, Carl. I was quite surprised by this. Now, this is obviously down to me, not looking into things too much, especially I don't follow TNA too strongly, as you well know. But Tessa Blanchard left TNA, let's say, some time ago, in a kind of a strange way, to the point that I don't think she left properly. I think they had to beg her for the belt back as well. It was kind of strange the way it all went down. But nevertheless, there was some speculation that Tessa Blanchard's heading over to WWE. And I said to you a while back, Carl, that I'm surprised because of Tully that she's not heading towards AEW. This most recent one is an update on Tessa Blanchard's wrestling future. And they mentioned the fact that there was a lot of controversy on her in TNA, and this is the bit that I've clearly overlooked. And that apparently they had some historical thing come up with how she was treating other women in the backstage, how she was treating. I think when she'd done some work in Japan, she was known to have been using some racial slurs and stuff like that. And apparently, allegedly, some fairly sort of bad behavior, and the reason this surprised me is because apparently that's why people were going, well, she's not going to go to AEW because AEW aren't interested in her because of those controversies. So the thing for me with this is the article itself saying, well, no, AEW might well be interested. This is the update. We're not too sure where she's going because it seems that both WWE and AEW are vying for her, so we're not sure who she's going to go with just yet. But similarly, did you know about this controversy? Because I had no idea. I seem to have completely gapped that one.
I'd heard around the time that it was kind of discussed, is she going to go anywhere, that there might be, animosity or reasons why she wouldn't end up in places. But I'll have to admit I didn't really know the full extent of it. I think the stuff you've described there, I definitely didn't know anything of that level. I thought she might have been a little bit difficult to deal with or something like that.
I mean, the behaviour over the leaving and the belt seemed to suggest that she might have been difficult to work with managerial wise. But yeah, apparently bit of heat backstage by all accounts.
I mean, I think it'll be like a crying shame. I think we saw as well. AEW were like, yeah, we've got no interest in it, and her dad is an active member of that show.
I know, right?
For them to be like, nah, fuck that. It must be bad. So I don't know. I think by all accounts she was headed to WWE, according to the dirt sheets, not too long ago. So yeah, strange one. I think she's definitely got the talent there, but hopefully she's not one of those whose personality is unfortunately, kind of crippled her career.
I mean, the thing is, she's not going to reach what she did in TNA with WWE. So it's whether she wants that. They're not ready for that kind of match. We've seen it. We've mentioned it a few times with WWE. They're not really keen on this agenda. They're not really keen on that kind of thing. So she's at best she's going to become the women's champion. And obviously TNA she became the world champion. So it's a fair bit different, isn't it? Really.
Well, yeah, I think it's a bold statement. I think to make a woman your world champion. And
Yeah,
I think
I commended them for that as well.
it's a good one. I think it's one that I definitely agree with. But I think you're right. I think WWE won't do it anytime soon, but it's something that they could do in the future. I think
It's just they're not making
slowed up.
steps towards it either. So
No,
like, there's no way Tessa's going to rock up and they're going to go for that.
no,
It takes a bit of mileage, doesn't it? They need to start having intergender matches for starters, instead of hinting at them and then sort of backing off like cowards.
yeah. I think as well. I think if they are going to do something like that, it'll be the likes of the Miz or someone who will drop the title there. I can't see someone coming in and beating up Drew or beating up like Roman or the Fiend or someone like that. So.
But do you remember, like, do you remember, like, there was once in WWE where they looked like they were going to pull the trigger on this kind of thing, and I think it was either Nia or potentially Tamina, because I can't remember who was on the roster at the time for Raw, and they were hinting at, like, her going up against Randy Orton, possibly. And they even at the point where I think, did he drop her with an RKO at one point in a segment, and they were hinting at that maybe the echo towards, like, they have a bit of animosity and they're potentially going to go towards a match, and apparently both stars were up for it. But yeah, for some reason WWE just sort of they pull away from it again, like they get a bit too squeamish. I think I don't know what it is about it, but they seem to worry about their PG rating when it comes to men and women wrestling, even though it's an entertainment business. We're all about equality. They seem to just, I don't know if it's like a TV thing, maybe, or the studios probably have a bit of influence. I don't know. Because let's face it, TNA haven't got the same restrictions, have they?
No, defo. Yeah, weird one. I can't really remember it, to be honest. I've slept since, so it sounds like it would have been Nia more than it would have been Tamina. But
no,
I just making the whole thing up.
I remember a time when Tamina was on Raw as well. It's the only reason I'm leaning slightly towards that, but I feel like it was Nia.
Okay.
But also, I may have just imagined it. Who knows?
Well, Anthony, speaking of girls, so fantastic news. Obviously, we started off the show with a bit of a somber, obviously remembering of Pat Patterson, but to conclude this segment, we have some really positive news, which is that finally Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch have announced that they've given birth to a baby girl. I think they've called her Rue.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So I think based on Seth's real name would be Rue Lopez. So yeah, I think fantastic. Obviously, they posted a really nice picture on Instagram of.
Yeah, I love the subtlety of it as well, because obviously they're not showing faces.
No,
I know people want to have that element of privacy, especially with the children, and I get that. I thought they'd done it really, really quite eloquently with the hands.
Yeah, defo. I thought it was really lovely moment. And I thought the little hashtag of "AnNew" was really fitting as well for the wrestling business and stuff. So yeah, I think we just kind of wanted to end the show with like a big, congratulations to them.
Yeah,
just be like, yeah, welcome to the world.
Indeed.
The man's
we're both fathers, so we get a bit soft with stuff like that as well.
Oh god, yeah. I was like, oh my god, it's a baby. But yeah, I think amazing news for them. I think obviously Seth. You know what? I think for me, I didn't realize it was so soon. But I think that's 2020, baby. I was just like, yeah, I knew it was coming up, but I didn't know when it was.
Yeah,
so,
it's crazy, because you don't realize how long she's been gone. But there you go.
No. So it was like, I knew Seth was going to be taking time off, and I was like, oh yeah, it'd be for the baby, but it must be a while away. It was like a week later. I was like, oh shit. So yeah, I don't know. I think massive congrats for them, and
indeed,
parenthood is amazing. So enjoy it, and maybe we'll see them both back in the ring soon. But yeah, amazing news.
Indeed. Let's raise a glass.
Let's raise a glass. Except my glass is empty. So, on that note, Anthony, that was the Ringside Report. And so
the last bit of news being that
that is the top of the show, I think. But yeah, I think we will, before we head into our other segments, we will take a break. We will fill our glasses.
Check this one out, Carl. For the first time ever, guys, we'll be back after this advert.
Monopoly Events presents For the Love of Wrestling, Europe's largest wrestling convention, back in Liverpool, the Exhibition Centre, between the 15th and 16th of May. Guests this year include Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, the Icon, the Showstopper, Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels, 3-time WWE champion, 3-time TNA champion, things are about to get extreme with Jeff Hardy. 7 times Women's Champion, Diva of the Decade and Hall of Fame star Trish Stratus. Grand Slam winner and the wrestling god, John Bradshaw Layfield. These and many, many more will be joining us in Liverpool. Find us on Facebook at For the Love of Wrestling. Visit our website, fortheloveofwrestling.co.uk. For tickets for entry and guests, visit ticketquarter.co.uk. That's ticketquarter.co.uk. For the Love of Wrestling. By the fans, for the fans.
Hey everybody, this is Thunder Rosa and you're watching or listening A to the K.